Modern Brew Life. So anyways, we are doing a little impromptu brew day right now. Just got off work a little bit ago. So we are brewing a California Pale Ale, the recipe by Ballast Point. But as last time, I modified it, and we're going to do it the same with this one. Except the only really modification that we're doing is that we're going to dry hop it after a week of the fermentation process. So it's not much of a modification, but you know, gotta add your own twist. So we're using 8 pounds of US Pale 2 Row, 1 pound of Crystal, 10L, and we're using some Falconer's Flight hops. And this brew will be an all grain brew, which I've never done before. So it will be interesting, because I usually just do extract brewing, and so this will be a learner for me, and also my dad's gonna help out. This is his beer, so we'll see how it goes. One thing I forgot to mention, so I just got this new 8-gallon tallboy kettle from Northern Brewer. It's pretty cool, and because they had a deal going on, got this Dark Star 2.0 burner as well. So far it's pretty sweet, so I'm pretty stoked on it. It's got the thicker bottom for the kettle, so less likely of scorching happening. But yeah, so it's perfect size. We're doing those 5-gallon or 4 to 5 gallon batches that I usually do, so that's sweet.
Yeah. You want me to stir it or anything?
Sure. Dip that
do
thing in the sanitizer and then stir it.
Oops. This is the stir stick, right?
Yeah, dip it in the sanitizer first.
Oop. This is sanitizer?
Yeah. All of it. It's what my room just smelled like for the past week and a half, was just green. Yes, you want to keep giving it a stir.
Smells good. It's supposed to be that thick. It looks like oatmeal.
Yeah, that's what it's supposed to be.
Good evening. Good evening. Here we go again. Check this out. Good evening. Good evening.
Alright, so we are now waiting for about an hour or so we can, all the sugars in the grain that I mentioned earlier can be extracted. Obviously going to take temperature readings every once in a while. within the 60 minutes. And after that, we will take the official brew bag out and all the grains, and get all that liquid out of it, because grains retain a lot of liquid, a lot of good liquid. And then we will start the boil up again and add some hops. And then, I don't know if you can see, 29 minutes or so to go. Green up. This is going to be heavy.
Sure. 8 pounds probably the case. 15.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Mm-hmm. That's why that bag's reinforced.
Yeah.
Oh, the wart's draining off. How long do you hold it like that? A minute or two?
Yeah.
It is kind of heavy.
Yeah, it's hot.
There's a lot of liquid still in there.
Yeah.
I don't want to touch it because my hands are cold. That would ruin it.
There we go. We're at that point. So we're gonna add 1 ounce of the Falconer's hops. And then have that keep boiling for a little bit, and then after pretty much near like the 10-minute mark of our last boil, because this is where we're at. We're almost done with it. Then we will add the other ounce of it to give it more of a earthy flavor. And then from there, we'll let it cool down, and then transfer it over to our fermenter. That's a word, fermenter. And then we'll let that cool down probably for a little bit more, and then we'll add the yeast. And it should kick in probably later tonight, early morning. So that'd be awesome. Alright, so adding 1 ounce of the Falconer's hops, 9.97%. I don't know if you can see that, but it's just the hop pellets, which is pretty standard. It smells pretty good, which I wish most of you, I wish smell-o-vision was a thing. Smell-o-vision was legit. That'd be where it's at. So anyways, 1 ounce of it, here we go. I'm just gonna eyeball it because I don't have a food thing to it, so here we go. We're also going to give those a stir around so they can evenly disperse within the mash, or not the mash, the wort, since there's no longer grain in it. Alright, so just a little tidbit. So this is the yeast that we're using. I'll probably give another 40 minutes or so. California Ale 001. Which is pretty sturdy yeast. Ranges from like 60 to 80 degrees. And so, or at least like fermenting temperature can withstand that. And even still, like, you're still good. Like it's a sturdy, like, hardcore yeast that you want to use. Other than that, like, it's pretty good. And you just can't go wrong unless it's higher temperature, but that's something else. But stay tuned, and we'll be pitching the yeast soon. So, alright, Alright, so here we are at the last kind of ending day, or ending hour, I guess. So it's turning the flame off, flame out, whatever you want to call it. Now we're just going to add the rest of the other ounce of the hops. Let the whole wort kind of cool down and chill. We're also going to add the rest of the remaining water in as well, just to cool down and also add more liquid volume. So here it goes. The rest of the Falconer's hops. These ones, the folk. There we go. The ounce of it. Of the hot pellets, shall I say. Give those a stir. So they can mix into the wort nicely. Also kind of aerate it as well. As I said, the flame is out, so it's cooling down, which is what we want, and it's also it's the evening time, so it's temperature outside's cooling down as well, which is helping us cool down the wort faster, so we can pitch the yeast in essentially, which probably won't happen until like later tonight, but totally fine, because you don't want to pitch the yeast when the wort's still hot. Probably want it about like, I don't know, room temperature or so, because if it's too hot or if it's too cold, if it's too hot the yeast will die. If it's too cold, yeast may die or just become inactive and won't work. So you just have grain and hot tea essentially. So you want to find that sweet spot, or the sweet temperature spot, so you can put in some grain, or not grain, put in the yeast, or pitch the yeast. I just want to give it a couple more stirs. I'm going to take a quick temperature reading just to see what it is right now. Looks like it's at like 83 Celsius and dropping, which is good. So I'll just take this off the heat source. That's not so hot right now. Just disconnect this real quick. Make sure it's totally closed off. Let that dissipate some. Ugh. Yeah, that's not hot at all. Give another quick temperature reading. 75, 80 Celsius. So it's definitely dropping, but now we're gonna add the rest of our water, which is gonna cool it down a lot, which could be able to pitch the yeast sooner. I'm gonna do this carefully. Now technically this is watering down the beer, but since it was like 9 pounds of grain, there's so much saturation of grain water that it doesn't really matter. Plus we're gonna dry hop it anyways, so it's all good. There's that. Give it another stir. Probably like 3.5, 4 gallons. Still smells delicious, nonetheless. I really feel a lot of residual temperature, so we'll take a temperature reading. Yeah, so all that extra water dropped it down to like 40 Celsius, so that's what I was hoping for. So I can literally just transfer this into our fermenter and just add some yeast and call it a day. So we finished with the flame out and adding the hops, the other ounce of the hops. We transferred it over to our fermenter, the 5-gallon carboy, and now, in my opinion, it's a little too warm to add the yeast. So I'm gonna let it naturally cool for an hour or two, and then I'll add the yeast, the 001 yeast, and then that one, like usually last beer that I had it, the yeast kicked in around 3 in the morning. I mean, it's like 7:30 right now, so after that, give it like an hour or 2 or 3, whatever. Then I'll add the yeast, like I said, and then we'll do a blow-off tube, which I usually like to do, especially with the bigger batches, just because it's, I don't know, I feel it's better. And then probably after that, once the yeast starts to slow down, add or take off the tube and then add the firm lock to it. But either way works. And then after after a week, I will dry hop it with another type of hops. I forget the name of them, but we'll do that around 17%. And afterwards, then let it ferment for another week, and then we'll bottle it. So it should be good. See ya.